If you're a leader, you serve people. It's not that people work for you, you serve people. I started Glasnost, which I grew to 40 full-time employees, and I sold it with a EBITDA of 1 million euros to a large agency group. But it really struck to me that I had to change something in my behavior, because I was always in stress mode, grinding for that extra euro, growing, without sometimes having the focus on what was important, which is your. From that moment on, that changed my life literally, because it also enabled me to focus on.
There's always a bottleneck, there's always a ceiling. What is it that you see as the major problem?
Sometimes I have entrepreneurs that say, yeah, I'm just like this. I cannot help it. Of course you can help it. If you're not willing to do this, then you cannot scale, because you cannot zoom out and you always have to be involved with the clients, and you cannot work on new innovations or to tackle the AI coming in our industry and evolving it in your business models.
If you were to start an agency today, and not just the PR agency, any kind of agency, what would you do differently? So today we've got Wouter Glaser, who's a serial entrepreneur who has founded 7 companies. Some of them are marketing agencies, and leading to 3 successful exits. His most renowned venture is Glasnost, became a PR powerhouse in the Netherlands before being acquired in 2020. Today, Wouter is running GoDelphi, which is a scale-up studio helping businesses grow, develop exit strategies, and scale sustainably. By the way, Wouter and I, we go back in time when we met for the first time at his office, at Glasnost office, during the Ad Night events. And this is actually when I picked up LinkedIn as a customer acquisition for my agency. I remember you shared, I asked you how do you get clients? You told me, well, LinkedIn. I I went back to the UK. I was like, okay, I should do LinkedIn too. So thanks very much for for sharing your advice at the time. It led to a lot of different businesses, to a lot of different interesting ventures as well. So I attribute this to you as well. But yeah, Wouter, look, today what we're going to do, we're going to dive into your story, but also, we'd like to unpack the advice and the overall experience of scaling up businesses, agencies. Obviously, my audience is mainly digital marketing agencies. So we'll dive into that. And perhaps we can start with your introduction. Maybe you can give your version of introduction. What do you do now? And a little bit about your background.
Yeah, maybe just to start, after graduation, I worked for 7 years in agencies, but also on the client side. I worked at Hives, which is a local social competitor to Facebook. It doesn't exist anymore. This was in 2010. I also worked at TomTom, and then in 2012, I started Glasnost, which I grew to 40 full-time employees, and I sold it with a EBITDA of 1 million euros to a large agency group, where I had a role as chief growth officer. And in this group, I learned a lot also about scale and how to, also what's important in a post-merger situation, how to let all the agencies that were taken over, I think there were 12, work together, and also how to make this a success. I left after 2.5 years, and I could not find myself in the same culture, so I did not fit in that respect. And then I started GoDelphi by myself again, and this is what I currently do. So I help primarily agencies scale their businesses in a way that they can have a sustainable growth and perhaps also have an exit horizon somewhere. I am a very open person that also wants to share my own pain and learnings in order to help the agencies that I'm working with find the right pathways in order to realize the growth. And I love this, actually. So going from 0 or 1 to 40, and then from 40 to 350, and then back to 1 is a very interesting way. But I cannot help it. I really like to scale again. So after a year and a half of doing this, I have really advanced conversations with someone that is also has a business strategic background, and we are planning to well, we're already teaming up, but we perhaps plan to merge our businesses to form a team and become more of like a scaling agency, and maybe also to create a bigger target audiences than agencies alone. But for now, my primary focus is to be a co-founder as a service. That's how I call it. So I step into the energy of a co-founder or an investor, and with that in mind, I help companies and entrepreneurs unlock their full potential, but also to teach them and learn them about scale-up methodology, and keep them accountable when they have certain goals that they want to achieve. And I think that last part is the most important thing, because you can do 1,000 things a day being an entrepreneur, but what are the most important things to do? This is also something that I'm obsessed with, and I heard from, for example, Reid Hoffman, the CEO of LinkedIn, that he also spent like 30 minutes doing that every day, and that determines how his day goes rather than what the agenda tell you to do, and also how to prioritize this in a year, and to really get your company moving, especially through these difficult growth phases. When you're at 10, it's difficult. When you're at 1, it's difficult, and when you're at 20, it's difficult again. So you have all these growth phases that you have to move along. And then if you have the right focus, if you work with QBRs or with rocks, then you are going to upgrade your company while doing a lot of business and doing a lot of things that are connected to the core of your business, rather than working on upgrading your business.
Yeah, there's a lot of to unpack. The philosophy itself, I think first of all, I'm very much close to your overall philosophy, which is essentialism, focusing on what is important and what is not important. Differentiating the two is sometimes difficult, especially when you're in the business and you're overwhelmed by day to day. So it's very interesting. I think we'll definitely unpack. I would like to maybe make a step backwards and ask you about how did you get into entrepreneurship in the first place in the agency space? What drew you to entrepreneurship, to agency, maybe agency model specifically, or did you just kind of fell into that business?
Well, so my first company was when I was 14. I was a big gamer, and I wanted to get free games. So what I did is I started a website. I had 200 kilobytes of free data at Angel Fire, and I just wrote some reviews. I called some distributors, and then I got in touch with PR people. So my first way in was at that time. And I remember this one instance that I was invited for the Intel Pentium 3 press conference. And there was like a big van waiting for us. Like it's like a van where Justin Timberlake will move when he's on tour. So it was like leather couches and nice catering. But I was 15 years old, and I invited a friend over. And then, I approached the van and I knocked on the window, and the PR spokesperson was like making this move, like, go away, go away. And then somebody else was coming in. So yeah, we tried to climb along, and they thought that they were being pranked by us, that we did not had any validity on this press conference. And this company that arranged this and did the PR for Intel, but also for Microsoft, became my first employer after graduation. So
Right.
that was in 2005, so 8 years later. So I learned a lot during my first, well, you can call it a business. Maybe I had a turnover of 2,000 or 3,000 euros a year with some advertisement. It was not big, but it learned me a lot in what I really liked, what I wanted to do. So then I just discovered agency life at the agency side. And it was when I was in a corporate at TomTom that I felt I did not belong, that I was more of an entrepreneur. And yeah, it was just a calling or a feeling. And people were actually telling me to do so. So there were multiple people saying, hey, maybe you should start your own business. And I'm not from a background of entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
So I really had to think about it, and also, to look at the risks. Luckily, my wife said that she could take the mortgage for a couple of months. I asked her if she could carry it by herself. I said, yeah, that's fine. And then she said, but I want to see 3 signed contracts.
Mm, a
So
good
3 deals. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's when I went for it. And then a lot of things happened because those 3 deals were signed within a month.
Wow.
And within 1 month, Rabobank, that you might know as Raiffeisen Bank,
Yeah.
which is, a global acting bank, came on my horizon, and they were looking for somebody to do Twitter and everything, which is, if you look at PR, quite a big scope. But I said, well, let's go for it. And they said that I had to cooperate with a very large, well-known international PR agency. So I had to cooperate with them. So I went into that meeting and I was so prepared, but I was better prepared than they were, because Rabobank was just one of their clients. And then after the meeting, the lady, Renee Schnitzler, came to me and she said, Wouter, you're not only doing social, you're also going to do PR. So I landed a retainer after 1 month of doing business. And I'm not sure if I can talk about numbers. I don't want to brag or something, but
Of
it's just
course.
to get a
It's very
to get a
actually
grasp.
it's actually very interesting. How did you go about pricing Rabobank?
Oh, that was also interesting.
Yeah.
Is that I had in mind 90 euros. This is in 2012 is enough, and then she said, "Well, what's your tariff? Maybe 110 euros." And I said, "Well, that's fine, So that's how it went about. And of course, I worked my ass off and delivered every month. I also, got a lot of nice campaign successes in South Africa and Brazil. It was really nice to work with the Rabobank, and it's also my house bank still.
Yeah.
Um, but after 6 months, I had a turnover of 120K alone. So I had really like repetitive strain injuries on the amount of time I was working. I was working from 8 till 10, and that was also the time that I decided, I want to take a month off in December, and also to hire someone in 2013, which is a very difficult move, because I think I
Mm.
spoke to 4 people, and with some people I was very close, but to move from 1 to 2 is, I think, the most difficult hire you will ever do.
Who was your first hire?
So the first hire was a guy called Yannick. I knew him because I was in the same group of friends. Yeah, he really liked the story about Glasnost, and he wanted to move in, etc. So I was very lucky to have him, and he was a very good account, a project-oriented person with also some creative ideas. And I was very lucky to find a person like him, because I also had discussions with people that wanted to have 50% of the share. Your company is still nothing; it's acting for 6 months. But I'm very happy that I made the move with Yannick, and he stayed with us for 4 years and became also a partner. So yeah, that was very good. And from that moment on, the snowball became bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
so the first year, yeah, 0 hires. After a half a year was the first hire, and then after that, the second year, and it was like a third and a fourth hire. And then there was like this momentum, because we was 2014, and then we landed Vodafone as a client.
Hmm.
And yeah, I can still not imagine it, but it's like, so they spoke with 13 PR agencies, and there was a very young person, Annelies Valk. She was 25 years old at the time, and she wanted to do something new and fun, and something which was really like brand PR. So she spoke to so many agencies, and then she spoke to us. But we were like a collective of 3 people and an intern. So we came into that office, but I had like a very lucky introduction. So Willem Albert Bol used to work at Vodafone before, and he tipped me to her, and I worked for him as on one of the agencies that I worked previously before. So he knew, how dedicated I worked, and I worked hard and had great ideas, and he trusted into that. And she also felt in the introduction that we were going, that it would work with us. But then they said, okay, we give you a test assignment, your budget is 50K. So like our average client was like doing 25 a year. And then we got 50K for 1 month of work. So
Wow.
but I worked literally
Yeah.
like the 30 days only on this project
Yeah.
with also the help of other people. And it was about introducing the Smart Pass, which was like a sticker, an NFC sticker that you could put on your phone. Now it's in the Apple Wallet, but before it was a sticker, and you had to like charge it up and everything. And it was the first time that something like this was introduced.
Hmm.
But then during this campaign event in Dubai, Visa updated the server, it went wrong, and the Dutch television news was like filming in this street. We call this the Walletless Street, and we invited 300 influencers. But during this day, something went terribly wrong. So the people from the TV news were like trying to pay the street artist, and it was like, uh, uh, some people went batshit crazy. We kept cool. We managed it, and during because of our strong relations, the positive beep was like edited into the TV news. The 300 influencers did not write negatively about it. They accepted it, and it showed how good our relations were. And after that, Vodafone became a client, and we grossed like I think that year like 800K. So we grew from 350K in 2013 to over 1 million of turnover in 2014. So we
Wow.
we grew
Well,
like this.
what do you think made these giants trust you and your team? I mean, obviously Rabobank, Vodafone, and everyone else. How old were you at the time, by the way?
I was in 2014. I was 31. Yeah.
Well, it's fine. It's like not in your early 20s anyway, but still, like you didn't have any like major PR experience or backgrounds before
Well,
that.
yeah. Well, I worked 7 years in PR,
You
so
worked for somebody else, yeah.
that's what I took along. And also, I worked at the client side, which I learned a
Right,
lot,
right,
and
right.
also based a lot on my network on. So this is really interesting. Is that if you work in an agency,
Yeah.
obviously, you can have a lot of clients to work with and a lot of people to network with. But because I worked at the local social network and at one of the biggest corporate successes in the Netherlands, TomTom, I also had access to the best journalists, and they would also
Right.
answer the phone. Because a lot of PR agencies just have to like call and send emails, and so I had a very strong PR background. The reason that I did this is also because I think the methodology changed during the time. So there was this trend before the PR agencies would just send out 300 emails, and then 10 journalists would just write them up. But
Hmm.
then advertisement declined, or the advertising income declined, and also the media chain landscape changed dramatically. So we were at the right time, the right voice of we know a better methodology to still have the impact of PR, which
Hmm.
is creating the news together sometimes. So what we did with the Smart Pass was create several stories in a street. We
Hmm.
also had all the small and medium sized businesses in that street. It's the 9th Street district. If you come to Amsterdam, please go there and not to the Dam Square. So if you're in the 9th
Yeah.
Street areas, you have the nice shops and boutiques and everything. So we asked 45 shopkeepers to change their PIN terminal to a new updated one so they could accept the wireless payments that we all do today. And they were like, Glasnost, it's like a Russian name. Are they skimmers?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the fuck? And really like changing to a new PIN terminal is very difficult because you have existing contracts and it has so many facets and details. You don't
Yeah.
want to know. So it was like a gigantic operation. But what we could do is use that street to curate multiple stories. So we had the TV news coming in a bookstore and interviewing the bookkeeper. Someone was interviewing the CEO, but then in the middle of the street, we had a traffic sign which said it's prohibited to bring a wallet. So there were so many different aspects of this campaign coming back that that it created a snowball, and that became also our signature of success. Is that We don't just do the status quo by sending out press releases. We make news very active. And that's how I also, came up with 3M's methodology: message, moments, means.
Mm.
If your message is strong enough, you don't need all the extras.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you're in commercial marketing, PR, you need something extra, which is a moment, which we did with the Smart Pass. And then you have means. If you have maybe some money spare to create an extra snowball, you can also pay influencers or even some media
Mm.
to get some additional attention. And in some cases, you just go to means. If you're talking about mortgages, it's boring. It's not working. To be honest, with the Smart Pass, it was such a big news story. It could have been only a message, but
Mm.
because we made it a moment, it became 3 or 4 times as powerful as it would have been if we would just send out a press release and do a CEO profiling. So I think that laid the foundation for Glasnost. It also showed to other clients like Unilever that we were the agency to follow,
Mm.
and that followed suit. So they were looking at us, and after 6 months of campaigning, they advanced to us as well, and they followed. And they spoke with us before, but they said, "Sorry, guys, you're too small for Unilever. We're not going to do business with you." So that's how it advanced
Progressed.
and snowballed. Yeah.
So you grew quite rapidly, but then with fast growth, just like in tech, right? If you grow too fast and there's a lot of demand for what you have to offer, you inevitably run into like operational challenges, team challenges, and things may not work as smooth. What was your experience like operationally behind the scene with the actual business?
So I think the first problem that I ran into was myself. Because if you're building a company and for example, I was doing Vodafone solo. I was the account manager, the strategist, the creative, etc. For a long time, my primary focus was I just do Vodafone. And if you're running a client, but also are responsible for the growth of an agency for a company, it's really difficult to prioritize in between them. And I learned it the hard way. I asked feedback from my colleagues about how I scored on their core values, or the core values of Glasnost, which were a version one type of core values. That's how I call them. It's like unimaginative core values that are very hygienical. So it was like openness, passion, and trust. Those
Mm.
were the 3 values. And I got some really strong feedback. We did it anonymous because we were like 8 or 9 or 10, I don't remember. But it really struck to me that I had to change something in my behavior, because I was always in stress mode, grinding for that extra euro, growing, without sometimes having the focus on what was important, which is your colleagues, because you build a team and then you build the company with them. It's not
Mm.
the other way around. It's not that you build a company and then buy or build a team. It's you have to focus a lot on team. So I learned it the hard way, and then in 2017, I remember we were with 13 people on the 5th anniversary of Glasnost. And I hired a lot of good employees that were very, very skilled in PR, but some of them were not belonging to the culture. Some of them were very good in PR and belonged to the culture, and some were not that good in PR, but
Mm.
played an important role of having the right atmosphere. And then I came in touch with Go Fast Forward, which was a scaling program, 15 days, based upon the scaling up methodologies. And I learned so much. I learned so much
Mm.
because I studied to become a PR professional, but I never had the proper knowledge in order to scale a company. And that's when I think in the first weekend, I already had some very strong decisions to make in regards to the team. I also learned a lot about that, about EBITDA and about how important it is to have a good feeling at your turnover. One of the people that I met there is now the person I want to join forces with. So he was one of the financial startup coaches, From that moment on, that changed my life literally, because it also enabled me to focus on giving trust to the team and transforming me actually to a person that is closer to
Hmm.
myself than the maybe the person that built Glasnost in the first years on a lot of cortisol and with a knife between his teeth.
Yeah.
That's how I became also the version that felt the most comfortable person, along everyone, which is just a relaxed person that is interested in people, that can listen, and to be a real leader to someone, because that's the person you have to become. And
Hmm.
otherwise you just stick with 20, and you have to, hire new people, and you cannot grow advanced at point, because you have to also trust other people in your management team to lead a company, and from that moment on, face where your strengths are and also your weaknesses.
How
So
how do you go about how did you go about developing that leadership mindset and skill set? And the reason why I'm asking is because we also work with a lot of different agencies as a firm, and one of the biggest bottlenecks that we solve for is the transition from, I would say, a founder mindset, or like that freelancer slash founder mindset, to a managing director or like a CEO mindset. And a lot of that is soft skills for the most part. How did you make that turnaround for yourself? What was the maybe a pivotal shift or a mindset shift, or was it that you had to sit down every day and reflect or focus on a particular area of the business? What did you do?
I think it went gradually.
Mm.
I don't think leaders are made just like this. It's a process. It also takes a lot of self knowledge and personal development. And this is also, I think, people should prioritize. I see that the new generations that are a lot of the time my clients now, I think the average age that I coach and help or consult is around 28, 29. That those generations are really vested into their future and do a lot of personal development. So it's not a taboo anymore to talk with it.
Mm.
Sometimes when I'm talking to people my age that are in their 40s, then I really have to sometimes say, I think you should do Senshiatsu or go to Haptonom. And they are like, what are you talking about? I'm not crazy. So there was a big taboo on that area, and I think that millennials and Gen Z afterwards are much more open to it. So I think that's a very important thing, also to be open for yourself, that you want to become this best version of yourself.
Mm.
Sometimes I have entrepreneurs that say, yeah, I'm just like this, I cannot help it. Of course you can help it.
Yeah.
If you have like a high performance mindset, and if you see that your behavior is standing in a way, you're acting like fucking Cristiano Ronaldo, which is a great footballer. I don't want to get in that discussion, but I would never have a Cristiano Ronaldo in any of my teams, whether I'm an investor or not, because I don't want to win. I want to create the best culture that thrives and where people want to work for 10 years. And I
Mm.
also want to create a leadership team or a performance culture where it's not one person making all the goals.
Yeah.
I've seen Juventus play against Ajax. I think he was playing at Juventus or Inter. I think one of either. And I just saw Cristiano Ronaldo run like this, and
Mm.
he was like the only person mattering. And he cannot help it because he's a very good footballer. But if you're talking about the Ajax at that season in 2019, they went to the semifinals not because they were the most expensive team or they had the best players, but they had the best team. And with that, you can create a company that you can leave behind. If you ask me, what are you the most proud on? What I did? It's not what I've built, but what I left behind, and
Mm.
that I can still rely on the people that I built Glasnost with, because I started alone, but Henk has been with the company for 12 years and Stijn with 10 years. They're running Glasnost today, which is now part of Ace, and things changed there. After the turnover, but for 4 years after the turnover, they were in charge of that team, and they could do that because we did a lot of things together, and I allowed them. Well, first of all, I listened also to their feedback because they gave me very valuable feedback, and perhaps I could not have gone this far with their insights and also the way of leading, which is different than my style. But also after I left, they could maintain the turnover, and actually they increased clients and increased the EBITDA afterwards, which I think is a very phenomenal
Achievement, yeah.
achievement.
Yeah.
And I like to say that Glasnost, or what I left behind, is still thriving in that respect. And I think that's the best compliment you can get, that you make yourself not unmissable but missable.
Yeah, no, not dependable. I think I totally agree with you. I think the best compliment and the best feeling you get is when you know that the thing that you built operates, and not just operates but grows without your presence, without your
Yes.
involvement. So totally. Also, with regards to the team and culture, I don't know if you've read a book or heard of the book called All Blacks. It's about a rugby team, the All Star, or the best rugby team of all times, which is a rugby team from New Zealand. Uh,
Yes.
and the book called Legacy, and it's the opposite of the Cristiano Ronaldo philosophy. They have a very interesting thing inside of their team. It's a part of their culture, which is to do with their jerseys and how they pass on jerseys to other people or to other players. And basically, if you want to wear a jersey, if you're like a newcomer, if you want to wear a particular jersey, you need to become better than the person who's wearing the jersey. And the person who's wearing the jersey knows that the newcomer is after them. So they're obviously competitive. Everyone's competitive, but in a very playful, but sort of positively aggressive, playful way. They've got all of these rituals and everything else, and it's all about the culture. It's all about the team, and they've got a lot of different rituals and ideas and philosophies. So what you're talking about is exactly what the author writes in that book called Legacy. It's like one of my favorite books of all time on leadership and culture. So it's very much resonating with me as well.
All right, so I will have a read. I'm
Yeah.
very interested. Thank you.
So yeah, going forward, I mean, you understand that more than anyone else. Founders and agency owners and other businesses, service-based businesses, get stuck at a particular revenue. You know, whether it's 30, 40, 50 k MRR, you know, there's always a bottleneck. There's always a ceiling. In your experience of working with other business owners and agency founders, what is your advice, or what is it that you see as the major problem when they're facing the revenue ceiling or an operational bottleneck?
It's very simple. It's just rhythm and discipline, communication.
Hmm.
Okay, three things. So first of all, rhythm. Keep the rhythm is, I think, the most important thing. So don't just start to do a monthly team and then because you have a pitch, it changes, and then this time, yeah, we 4 weeks ago we already informed the staff. No, a staffer needs rhythm. So if you have a monthly, it's on every month, and if you're on holiday, then somebody else takes over because you have a solid way of keeping your people informed.
Hmm.
It's a weekly management team, not bi-weekly. What I see a lot of people doing, it's a weekly management team, and in that management team are people that have the skills to be leaders. I was in management teams sometimes where I had people that were interested to update their LinkedIn status to say that they were in a management team, but they were not interested in the people that they serve. And I think
Hmm.
if you're a leader, you serve people. It's not that people work for you, you serve people. So that's a mindset that you have to take into your consideration. You have the honor and the privilege that people want to work for you, with you actually, and you should as a leader be available to them and make sure that they can do their job without any barriers. That's your job as a leader. And there are many people in management positions that create chaos. And basically, in the end, people either burn out or leave. Those are the two ways. And that's a shame. You should really have this mentality. I want to serve the people. And otherwise, you are dismissed from a management team. So, but the management team should take place every week, and the decisions made in that management team are the decisions you want to hold on to. So sometimes you have like two founders in a management team, some junior people, and the two founders discuss, and then they change things. So there's not a real like equality in the management team. What I always suggest to my clients is to have someone be a chairman, another person is writing the notes, perhaps someone is a timekeeper, and this changes every week.
Mm. So wearing different hats, like having different roles. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and because in the most occasions it's that the two founders are like the chairman, the two new management team members are feeling lower in rank, so they write the notes or the minute takers,
Yeah.
and this creates a gigantic disbalance
Yeah.
in the equality that should be there in a management team. So also, if you invite people over to your management team, make sure that they are interested in people, and make sure that yourself as a act also like a leader, but also invite people that can be on par with you, and also create a parity situation where you are always on the same level by doing all these kind of stuff, so people learn to become a level leader on this, or on a leader on the same level. Okay, back to Rhythm is a management team, is a monthly update. Also, what Rhythm is, for example, that as a leader, a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to talk a lot to their employees at a certain company size. So when you're 30 or 40, people have their go abouts. They talk about their dog that is sick, or they have some
Mm.
trouble at home, etc. And most of the entrepreneurs tune out at that time, or maybe even earlier. But what I always say, and this is from the scaling up methodology, have a start, stop, continue conversation with a person that is actually not the closest, but the farthest away from you in terms of click, every week with somebody else. And if you're in a management team and you have like a team of 40, you have 3 or 4 people, that means that every week you get input data from 10 different people. And you have spoken the whole company within 1 month. So you can form policies or the direction or the objective setting based upon the real feedback of the team.
Mm.
So in one occasion, I was put on a agency that I had to restructure, and the first thing that I did is have conversations start to continue with every employee, and this gave me already so many valuable insights. So it goes like this: first of all, I asked them, "Okay, if you were in my shoes, where should I start with? What should we stop with, and what should we continue?" And I can tell you, after 6 months, nobody had any stops anymore. After 9 months, we did a management survey that we did previously 9 months before. And the trust into the management team increased 60%. And
Mm.
this was rhythm, this was communication, this was the start of communication, and also to make sure that there was discipline in the organization. That's the last point that I'm going to make, because rhythm and communication are very close to each other. I think you should always communicate and be clear as a management team where you work on, what are your rocks, what are your quarterly objectives, communicate them, also their progress, so that people know where you're working on as a management team, rather than being vague and showing what new clients were won and go on. You should really show that you're running and scaling a company, because that's when people want to work for you. The last thing is about discipline. Show up on time in a meeting. Of course, you can sometimes have a real big error, or I don't know, some personal situation, but just show up on time. If you're always late, it's really interesting, but it's not about you. It's
Mm.
about the respect that you have, and that you also influence your team and other employees. So if you're showing up on time, starting the monthly on time, don't make this about you, make it about the team. If you influence your team like this, then the whole organization starts to run in the rhythm, have discipline, also starts to communicate. And I think very important to know. Like former colleague Claire always said, like clear water flows from upstairs. You're setting the rhythm, and that's what I think is very important. Then I have a question to you,
Mm.
Romas. What do you think it costs when a employee leaves? So let's say this employee is hired at meteor level, earns about 4 or 5K a month. Her or she could have worked for you for 3 years from that point, but after 2 years they leave because of lack of discipline, lack of communication, and lack of rhythm. What do you think it will cost my agency when this person leaves?
That's a great question. It'll definitely cost a lot, including the if we include the low performance of that particular person who quit or who was laid off. Plus, then we need to recuperate for the new hiring expense. Plus the L&D, learning and development, that is layered on top of the new hire. Plus the gap, probably the first 3 months, the onboarding and the learning gap that they will need to make up for. So there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit.
What do you think? Name a number. There are no good or bad answers
I
because
would
it's I
say,
did the calculation, so
yeah,
it's unfair.
interesting. Yeah, I think about. I'd say around. I'd say at least. I'd say closer to 50,000.
I think it's 80.
Yeah, I'm a little bit close. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I think it's a good answer.
yeah,
But what I really like is the way you structured it. I think that already tells that you've touched already some elements, but also you have to talk about the absence with the management team.
yeah,
Other people are demotivated. Oh, this person leaves. They talk about it in the toilet. I don't know where
yeah.
they talk about it, but they talk about it.
The invisible costs, like the maybe reputation, maybe somebody needs to step in their
Right.
time. All of that.
Right. They
It's a
cannot do
lot.
new business. They
Yeah,
cannot spend time on marketing. They cannot spend time on leading other people. So they also might leave. No, yeah, it's like it's destruction of a lot. So I
yeah,
think that really is interesting number because then we're talking about numbers, how important it is to have these things in order,
yeah,
connected to a culture where you have high standards of core values, where you hire not people that nice curriculum, but where you hire and actually let people become part of a tribe. Because if you lead your company like a tribe, you have due diligence at the door. It's not that everybody can live in a tribe. So
yeah.
if you look at it from a tribe standpoint, it's really interesting how people are allowed to get into. And
Speaking about values, by the way, just sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. You said that back at Glasnost you had three core values: openness, the other two. Uh,
yeah, they were so bad in version 1 that
yeah,
you forget about them. So
yeah,
the version 2 that we made together with the team is we dare to be open.
mm,
So you dare to be open. So that's really interesting, and because it makes it binary. You
mm,
can fire someone, hire someone, or retain a person on this value because it's yes or no. There's no
mm,
maybes. The second was we connect over vodka, which is about the fact that we should, build a connection. And of course, if people don't drink because of their religion or they're pregnant or in this whole
yeah,
alcohol-free kind of Gen Z vibe, I'm
yeah,
also into it.
yeah,
Drinking less and less. It's also important to have like a solid social understanding. And these core values are not only for the team, they also are for our clients because we want them also to be involved with our company. So we connect over vodka is also with the clients that we work for. And the third is we lead the revolution, which is also stems from the period of revolution after Glasnost, but it also communicates about the way we want to innovate.
mm.
And I think these three values are memorable, they are binary, and they really help to get the right colleagues in.
Obviously, I haven't worked for Glasnost at the time, but when my friend and I attended the Ed Night event, and when we came into your office, I can certainly, with 100% confidence, say that the connection, the connectedness, the connection that that we had with your team was off the charts. It was, I don't know if you remember, but I had a fight, like the playful fight with some of your team who was wearing a bear suit. That was, where else would you get that? Uh, that
Yes, yeah. It had to like really fit into the team.
yeah.
Did you win?
I do not remember.
Okay, okay.
I don't
Too
remember.
much vodka.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I was greeted with vodka. There was AK-47 somewhere. I don't remember what it was, but it was like on not a real one, obviously. But and then I was like, oh, there's somebody fighting a bear. I need to be there. So that was a lot of fun. Going forward, one of the most common conversations that we have, that I have with also agency owners, is that the decision whether to go big, to scale past maybe 3 million, or stay under 2 million sort of revenue mark, because when obviously when you start scaling and growing further, you need to hire management, a proper management team. And what I started seeing is that a lot of one singular service agencies, for example, who focus just on digital PR or just on retention marketing, or they want to get to like a particular level, maybe like 2 million a year, and then chill. They don't want to do anything else because they don't want to face any more mental issue, mental challenges that come with everything else. Now,
Mhm.
what, like in your opinion, obviously, there are also agency owners who want to go big and grow bigger teams and everything else. What's your take? How should founders decide, which path to take, basically?
I think it's also a geographical challenge. I don't want to sound chauvinistic, but I think the Dutch society and the compactness of our country enabled me to grow that fast.
Mm,
From 1 to 40 full timers in a world where there were many agencies, many international players, and then I had the opportunity to work for the biggest brands, also for Google and for Diageo and for many other international renowned brands. And I was always surprised about it. Like why are they all coming to us? But it was also because of the blend we created. So we had like corporate PR and marketing PR in one route, which created somewhat a blue ocean for us.
mm,
A lot of people think that I'm like this business or this sales person
mm,
that, grabs the phone and calls everyone. Of course, I did this when I was fucking stressed to get my first assignments, when my wife pushed me to get 3 contracts done. Of course, I did this when it was summer in 23 and we just hired our first extra hire and there was no business. And we played FIFA at lunchtime. But at a certain point, when Vodafone came, it was such a breakthrough, and all the clients that we worked for remained
mm,
there. I cannot recall any of our clients to leave the contract, apart from Twitter, but that was because Elon Musk took over and there was no communication, and our PO just became not renewed. And of course, I had twice a difficult discussion with a large client that worked so negatively with my team that I had to let them go.
mm,
And for the rest of that, all, of course, projects went and go. And a startup introducing new electric scooters just became, but the big clients, the Ubers, the Googles,
mm,
everyone else, they remained for large amount of times. And after the merger, of course, maybe some people after 7 or 8 years looked at the contracts, but in many of the HC businesses, the amount of that the client wants to work with you is quite short, especially in the digital marketing space, because I coach a lot of those people. And what I tell them is make customer intimacy a priority. Make sure that you measure net promoter score on like 2 moments a year. Just ask your clients, not face to face, but in a digital way. You can use Typeform, for example, very easily to set it up. You have done it in 30 minutes. every half a year you send out with some reminders, because
Mm.
clients need reminders.
True.
What if you would recommend our agency to a friend or a relative? And
Right.
the 1 till 10. And if it's a 9 or a 10, you don't have to call them, because they are like bragging about you that they should work with you, etc. But if it's an 8 or less, you call them and ask them one question: how do we make this a 9 or a 10? And this feedback should be as accurate and fast as financial data. It should also come into your management team. We had an 8. And not celebrate it. Come on, you have like this high performance top mentality or not?
Mm.
And then turn this 8 into a 9 or a 10. And I think also, so make customer intimacy and also the churn and your monthly recurring revenue a priority. Measurements and dashboarding. Celebrate every 9 and 10 with champagne, but every other number is not good enough. So also set the bar for that. And I think this turns you into a company that can scale to above 2 million. If you're not willing to do this, then you cannot scale, because you cannot zoom out and you always have to be involved with the clients, and you cannot work on new innovations or to tackle the AI coming in our industry and evolving it in your business models. So I think there are a lot of challenges ahead of us. And if you make sure that you can scale and zone out and make sure that there's still measurements telling you the performance on your clients and the willingness of them to create longer contracts. So if you have the intention to work for
Mm.
5 or 10 years with someone, and what I said, I'm very lucky because PR is quite difficult. You have a network of journalists. It's not as easy copyable.
Mm.
It's also like a craft or something. We were and we are still at a bleeding edge of innovation on that, trying out new things, but also we still achieve great PR value. And I think that creates me in a special place. And I've noticed that because at GoDelphi, I've had 78 clients. I have now 45 active clients that I see every month.
Mm.
And there are many agencies with there, and they're all in the Netherlands geography. So
Mm.
they have the same chances that I have. But I found out that there are many factors that I did not realize while I was
Starting your
hitting the
yeah,
algorithms,
yeah.
which is I started in 2012, so the media landscape
Mm.
was changing. That the combination of corporate and marketing PR in one agency created the blue ocean. That if you have these very strong names, other clients will look at the curation of your names. That's another tip. Always look at what you want to be. So show them the 10 logos that I know rather than all the clients that you work with, because
Mm.
it's like this. I was always obsessed with this. I remember one colleague, we did a non A brand that my mother doesn't know campaign. And because it was a big campaign for someone, we put the logo there. And I didn't want to, I thought it was like a rock in my shoe, because it did not form the story of
Mm.
we work for A brands, because that's branding in itself.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I could replicate the success of Glasnost in this day and age, because I've also seen 2023 with very slow business, and I think also a small recession, and then getting business was quite difficult, it was 2022 when I was still at Ace. So I also know that there are now some economical, geographical
Mm.
difficulties. Things are changing. The impact maybe of PR is changing. The business models of agencies are under fire. So there are many factors right now that would have made the spurt that I've created in this nice vacuum between 2012 and 2020 a different race.
Actually, that leads me to the next question. If you were to start an agency today, and not just a PR agency, any kind of agency, but it has to be a service-based business, what would you do differently? What would you do differently? And you don't, you've got an open canvas, whatever you want, AI, data, anything.
Well, first of all, I would start with creating the theme around me, which would share my values, or that we would find common ground, because I think that's the most important thing. But I would start not alone, but with a larger audience, with more quality specialists, so we can really like move faster. But it's also that you are not starting with the absence of money, so that's you have I have a different, I can set the rules differently than when I started with 2,000 euros in the bank account. That would be the first one. The second would be, I would like lay the foundation for the business strategy, the discipline, and the meeting rhythms for the whole year, and then we'll put it in the agenda. So it's not something you have to find out. Do we need a management team? Do we need to have a quarterly? No, we have already planned it out for the whole period of time. And the third thing is that I would make it AI powered, because you have the opportunity to create an AI backed or AI infused company from the get go. So I would really look at it. And with AI, it also involves all the technology. So also what I did with GoDelphi is to have Pipedrive on, to have PandaDoc for the contracts. Not reverse engineer it while finding a wall you would crash into, but
Yeah.
already start with it. And people were really impressed. I'm signing with GoDelphi, which is like a one man band, and I get this very professional contract, which already shows you that you're doing business with someone that has this high bar. And I think that also influences them to create also their own higher bar, where tooling can really set you free. And also, yeah, if you want to exit one day, if you have all your contracts from day one in a vault, which also leads to faster sales signings, then I think you're on the right track.
Mm. Mm. What does an agency or maybe a service based like slash consultants in business need to look like to be ready for a sale? And I know it's like a loaded question. There are a lot of different things, but if we were to simplify it into like, maybe say 3 things or 4 major components, what does an agency need to have in place to be sort of prepared for an exit?
One is like the founder is detached from the company.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, this is possible. Yes, I saw a lot of exits of agencies up close, and most of the agencies, when the founder goes away, the whole energy changes. But that's also because the founder or founders did not lay the foundation of a company that has structure and discipline to continue without them. So I think that's a very main focus. The second thing is you have to really know your numbers. You have to like know what percentage is logical to go to this, to that. You need to close off your months every month within the month. So not the invoiced hours, but the hours that you have spent, or the value based if you have a different service. So every month you know what your EBITDA is, and you have a forecast and cash flow planning, all those things in place on a high level. You have invoicing going on. You've looked at the processes like order to cash very closely. This works. The third is you have a vision and a team that is willing to go for it. If you have those 3 elements in place, combined of course with a EBITDA of, I would say, 1 million plus, then you're ready for an exit. And then if you have 1 million plus, if you have a nice multiple, you can also create a phase where you become financially independent, which I think is the most important thing to do an exit. But maybe an exit to another company is not the best thing to do. To be honest, with my experience, I would not recommend it. I would recommend to install management.
What is? Did you say install management? What does that mean?
So
You
actually,
when you install the management into your business, you mean?
yeah. So I installed management on Glasnost and Fitzgerald when I sold it,
Right.
or installed. Sorry, I said I'm leaving Glasnost. I'm setting up Fitzgerald, hiring a managing director, and after 6 months or 3 months of low involvement, I went away. So I think 6 months after my exit, my 2 companies that I started were completely codependent without me. But I could have done this by myself as well without having external funding, etc. Because I was having very nice EBITDAs. So I would really like stress, and this is one of the workshops I have with founders wanting an exit. So I look at three aspects. What do you want as a person? I as Wouter from Glasnost, wanted to, create other ventures or go in other directions. So that was my personal thing, and also wanted to see if I could do something bigger, which I did. The second thing is, what does my bank account want? And this is very tricky because if you're scaling that fast, you really need to find the right financial people that give you also with project finance, the right insights, the right software. You can have turnovers of, we had a turnover of 4 million euros, 3 million brutto margin. But these are such large amounts, but you never can go to an ATM and, get 1 million EBITDA out of it because you need the money to grow. But you need to have the right people around you to have a good, solid, financial talk about, you can also loan something, or with this EBITDAs, if you're 70% stakeholder, you can also, get a bigger house. For example, what I didn't realize is that when I was the owner of a company with this EBITDA, I could go to the bank and get a mortgage of 5 times my management fee plus the EBITDA, maybe 80% of the EBITDA, but that would buy you almost the biggest house you can get. When I left, this was not the case
Yeah.
because we were like a scale up that was like doing, and I was this of a shareholder, so completely changed. I
Yeah.
did not know that, So, and the third factor is also your post merger integration. What is the plan? What happens with your brand name? What is your role? And this is something that we found out, by just doing. But I think it should be clear to you as a founder, if you're exiting, what the exact plan is, so you can also buy and tap into that, because that's the most important thing, because that's what happens next. I never intended, I'm going to leave after 2 years because then my earnout is done and go on. For me, it was like, this is now my new future. And maybe I can work for this company for 10 years or 15 years. That was my intention. So then you also have to buy into the plan. So yeah, those are maybe some things that you can get some information out.
Yeah, also fills me with more confidence because from also listening to you, I reflect on some of the things that we're doing. Obviously, we are a consultancy business, just like yourself. But from the get-go, I surrounded myself with other experts, brought them on the team. Plus, my life partner is my co-founder, and I 100% agree with you that it's mostly about surrounding yourself with the right people and building a team based business. Maybe personally, I don't believe in. It's not that I don't believe in solopreneurship. There is a growing trend of freelancers and solopreneurs. It just personally doesn't excite me. I think in this world, when I tried solopreneurship a long time ago, and it was very lonely and not something that I enjoyed. But from everything that I think what we discussed today, I've personally also learned quite a bit. So thank you. The last
Right.
question, the last question to you is what's next? What's next for Wouter?
There are many things that I want to do. With my new business partner, we want to tackle some of the issues in the agency world. So we're looking at helping agencies mastering AI and go beyond a ChatGPT training. But how can you do 20%? How can you do 50% more with 20% less staff? And also how this works in business models to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking at M&A development. So I was involved with some M&A trajectories. Of course, I'm not a corporate finance specialist, so I work with the best people in the market. But I'm a very objective coach that sometimes in the conversations I just gave you as an example have a conversation with someone and they think they want to sell, but then they go the other way around. They want to buy, or they install management, or a different variation. I want to be a very neutral person, and this is also a shout out to your readers or listeners. If they want to, even if they're not in the Netherlands, if they want to spar with me, etc., I'm available for that perspective. And sometimes it's just the perspective game rather than doing the whole M&A trajectory. But for the Dutch clients, I facilitate the whole M&A trajectory now. And also I want to create like an e-learning on M&A and AI, and maybe also in different languages than the Dutch language, to prepare people with the knowledge that we have. And I think that's very important, because GoDelphi used to be the Oracle. And I want just to make sure that all the knowledge that I've gained, that everybody has like equal access to it, and that you exit not by chance, that you just might meet the right M&A person, but that you have the right perspective on such emotional big event
Yeah,
before doing so, because I think that's where it often goes wrong. I think I learned a lot from my exit. With the knowledge that I have, I should have done it differently. However, I'm very grateful with the experiences and lessons that I've learned, and the way I can now help other entrepreneurs with making the right choice.
that sounds amazing. I guess people can find you, agency owners or service-based business owners can find you on LinkedIn mainly.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have the links attached to the podcast. Wouter, it's been great. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
having you,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully, yeah, we'll catch up very soon.
Thank you so much.